A millionaire discovered his housekeeper secretly sewing a dress. When he understood the true meaning of those stitches, his life collapsed and rebuilt itself in a way no one could have imagined. Secrets about life's true value came to light, and everything changed forever. A story of transformation, redemption, and love that goes beyond money. Get ready, because this story will touch your heart. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like on this video, and comment where you're watching from. Sometimes, transformation begins with what we don't expect to see. The April afternoon entered through the study windows like a silent promise, bathing every dark wood surface with golden light that seemed out of place in that house of marble and glass. James Mitchell climbed the stairs of his mansion with his phone still pressed to his ear, closing another seven-figure deal while his mind already calculated the next move. At 42 years old, he had perfected the art of being in several places mentally, while his body moved through the world like an efficient automaton. He pushed open his home study door, expecting the usual silence, that ordered emptiness he had carefully cultivated in every corner of his existence. But what he found stopped him cold, freezing him in the doorway with a bewilderment he hadn't felt in years. In the farthest corner of the room, by the window overlooking the back garden, there was a chair he had forgotten existed, inherited from some previous tenant and relegated to oblivion under a pile of old folders. Now that chair was occupied. Sarah Collins, the woman who had cleaned his house for barely 3 weeks, sat there with a straight back and her head bent over her lap. Her hands, tanned by the sun and marked by years of hard work, moved with extraordinary grace as a needle pierced red fabric again and again. White thread created delicate patterns, small swirls of lace that seemed too perfect, too professional to be the work of someone who scrubbed floors for $11 an hour. James stood motionless, watching. Sarah hadn't heard him enter, completely lost in her labor. Her lips moved in a barely audible murmur, words he couldn't distinguish, but that sounded like a prayer, or perhaps a promise. Her hands trembled slightly, not from lack of skill, but from something deeper, from a contained emotion that permeated each stitch. The dress she was creating was small, clearly for a little girl, deep red with white lace details along the neckline and sleeves. The design was simple in appearance, but James, who had negotiated with enough high-fashion designers for his company's corporate galas, recognized the sophistication in the cut, the precision in each invisible seam, the technique that transformed common fabric into something special. "It has to be perfect," Sarah murmured to herself, her voice so low James could barely hear her. So she feels special this Christmas, even though it's 8 months away, so she knows someone loves her enough to dedicate every minute. James felt something strange in his chest, a discomfort he couldn't immediately identify. He thought of Emma, his 8-year-old daughter, who at that very moment was probably in her second-floor bedroom, surrounded by dolls she never touched and designer clothes with tags still attached. He thought of the girl's last birthday, when he had sent her by courier a dress from Paris that cost more than 3 people's monthly salary, and she had looked at it with empty eyes before stuffing it in the closet without even trying it on. He cleared his throat softly. Sarah jumped, the needle escaping from her fingers and falling to the floor with a metallic tinkle. She stood immediately, with the half-finished dress falling from her lap, her cheeks darkening with embarrassment. "Mr. Mitchell," she said quickly, her voice trembling. I'm so sorry. I know I shouldn't be here in your study. I finished all the cleaning tasks and thought that it would only be a few minutes. It won't happen again." James raised a hand, stopping her. For some reason he didn't fully understand. He didn't feel annoyed, only curiosity, sharp and piercing. "What are you doing?" he asked, and his voice sounded softer than he intended. Sarah picked up the dress from the floor, holding it against her chest as if it were something precious, fragile. "It's a dress for my daughter Lily. She's 7 years old. Christmas is 8 months away." A sad smile crossed Sarah's face, transforming her completely. For a moment, James saw not his cleaning employee, but a woman his same age, with stories written in the lines around her eyes. "I know, but I work 3 jobs, sir, between cleaning houses, doing night shifts at a restaurant, and weekends at a laundromat. I never have time, so I start now, little by little, every minute I can." She caressed the fabric tenderly. "Lily has never had a new dress. only donations, clothes from other girls. I want her to have something special, even if just once, something made only for her. James looked at the dress with new eyes. It wasn't just fabric and thread. It was time stolen from sleep, fingers that ached from so much work, love measured in patient stitches across months of anticipation. "Where did you learn to sew like this?" he asked, pointing to the perfect seams. "That's not amateur work." Sarah's expression closed slightly, a shadow crossing her face. Before this, I was a seamstress. I made wedding dresses, custom clothing for special clients. But things changed. She offered no further explanation, and something in her tone told James he shouldn't press. "Now I clean houses. It's honest work." "I wasn't questioning your honesty." "I know, sir." Sarah folded the dress carefully. "Do you need anything else before I leave?" James shook his head, but as Sarah headed to the door, something prompted him to speak again. "You can use this space to sew. When you finish your work, if you need a place with good light." Sarah turned, genuine surprise on her face. "Really? I don't use this study as much as I should, and the afternoon light is better here than anywhere else in the house." "Thank you, Mr. Mitchell, that's very kind." After she left, James stood in the empty study looking at the chair where Sarah had been sitting. He could see some red thread strands on the floor, physical evidence of something he could barely name. He approached the window and looked outside, where his perfectly maintained garden stretched in geometric lines, each shrub trimmed with millimetric precision, each flower in its designated place. Everything was controlled, ordered exactly as he liked it. So why did he feel, for the first time in years, that something in his life was profoundly out of place? James Mitchell had built himself from foundations of middle-class origins and relentless ambition. He grew up in a home where big dreams were met with condescending smiles and warnings about being realistic. His father, an accountant at a mid-sized company, had once told him, "Not everyone was born to be rich, James. Better to settle for what's safe." Those words had burned him like acid, forging in him a fierce determination. At 23, he had founded his first tech company in a friend's garage. At 30, he was already a millionaire. At 40, he ran Mitchell Tech Solutions, a corporation valued in the hundreds of millions with offices in 3 countries. But success had come with a price that only now, sitting in his corporate office looking at the city spread beneath the grey April sky, was he beginning to truly understand. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Emma's nanny. "Miss Emma wouldn't eat breakfast again. Says she's not hungry. Should I insist?" James frowned and typed a quick response. "Don't force her. Make sure she eats something at noon." He put the phone away and massaged his temples. Emma had been difficult lately, quieter, more distant. He had assumed it was a normal childhood phase, something that would pass. "James?" Rebecca Anderson's voice interrupted his thoughts. His business partner entered the office without knocking, as always, with her impeccable tailored suit and a folder under her arm. "We need to review the Datacore merger contracts. I need your signature on these documents before noon." Rebecca was 5 years younger than him, brilliant and ruthless in business. They had founded Mitchell Tech together 12 years ago, when she was a recent graduate with more ambition than experience, and he needed a partner who shared his vision. They had built an empire together, each owning 45% of the company, with the remaining 10% distributed among minor investors. "Have you thought about CompuGlobal's offer?" Patricia asked, dropping the folder on his desk. "It's serious, James. They want to buy us out completely. The figure they mentioned yesterday. We could retire at 42 and 40-something, live like kings the rest of our lives." "I'm not interested in retiring." "Then think about doubling your fortune overnight, tripling it even." James looked out the window without responding. A week ago, this conversation would have excited him. Money had always been his measure of success, the tangible proof that he had surpassed the limitations of his upbringing. But now, after seeing Sarah Collins sewing a dress 8 months in advance, because it was the only way to give her daughter something special, the conversation seemed strangely hollow. "I'll think about it," he said finally. Rebecca studied him with sharp eyes. "You've been weird lately. Is everything all right?" "Everything's perfectly fine." "Good, because I need you focused. This is the biggest decision of our careers." After Rebecca left, James tried to concentrate on work, but his mind kept wandering. He thought about the house he had bought 3 years ago after his divorce. It was a 4-story mansion in the city's most exclusive neighborhood, with 6 bedrooms, a heated pool, a private gym, and panoramic views. He had chosen it because it sent a message. James Mitchell had arrived. But the truth was, the house always felt empty. Emma lived there, technically, but she spent so much time with nannies and private tutors that James sometimes went entire days without seeing her, more than a few minutes in the morning. His ex-wife, Monica, had gotten shared custody, but the girl spent most of her time in the mansion because Monica traveled constantly with her new husband. James worked late almost every night, weekends filled with business dinners, conferences, lightning trips to other cities to close deals. It was easier that way. He didn't have to face the fact that he didn't know how to talk to his own daughter. That afternoon, James arrived home early for the first time in weeks. He found Sarah in the kitchen, cleaning the marble countertops while the radio softly played Latin music. She hadn't heard him enter and was singing quietly, off-key, but cheerful. "Good afternoon, Sarah." She startled and immediately turned off the radio. "Mr. Mitchell, I didn't expect you to arrive so early. Do you need anything?" "I just wanted to." James stopped, not sure what he had really wanted. Company? Conversation? Both seemed ridiculous to ask of his employee. "How's the dress coming?" A smile lit up Sarah's face. "Slow, but steady. I finished the sleeves. Now I'm working on the hem. That's the part that takes the longest. Have you always wanted to make dresses?" Sarah considered the question while carefully folding the kitchen towel. "My grandmother was a seamstress in Mexico. When I was Lily's age, she taught me to make my first dress. It was for my doll, nothing special, but I remember how I felt when I finished it, like I had created something magical with my own hands." She smiled sadly. "That feeling never left me. Even now, when I sew, I feel like I'm creating little miracles." James leaned against the counter, something he never did. He usually maintained physical distance from his staff, a clear line between employer and employee. "What happened with your work as a seamstress?" Sarah's face closed slightly, invisible walls going up. "Things got complicated with an important client. There was a misunderstanding. She was influential, had many followers on social media. When things went wrong, she shared her version of the story and—" Sarah shrugged. "No one wants to hire someone with a bad reputation. Negative reviews stay forever on the internet." "That's not fair." "Life rarely is, Mr. Mitchell. But I don't complain. I have work, I have my daughter, I have my health. Many people have less." James admired her resilience, but also felt a pang of guilt. He had complete legal teams that could erase any problem from his reputation with a few phone calls. This woman, who clearly had talent and work ethic, had seen her career destroyed by something that probably wasn't her fault. "Where's your daughter now?" "With a neighbor, an elderly lady who watches her when I work. Lily does her homework there, helps with the garden plants. She's a good girl, never complains, though I know she'd rather have me at home." "How many hours do you work a week?" Sarah paused, as if calculating. "Between 70 and 80, I suppose. Sometimes more. I come here 3 times a week, work at 2 other houses the other days, have night shift at the restaurant 4 nights, and full Saturdays at the laundromat. Sundays I study online. I'm finishing a technical certificate in small business management." She laughed humorlessly. "It sounds like a lot when I say it out loud." "It's too much. It's what's needed." James thought about his own 60-hour work week, which he had always considered excessive. But he chose to work those hours, accumulating wealth he no longer needed. Sarah worked to survive, to give her daughter basic opportunities. The difference was devastating. "Does your daughter know about the dress?" Sarah shook her head, her eyes shining with contained emotion. "It's a surprise. At Christmas, when I finish it, it's going to be the best gift I've ever given her. Because it's not just a dress. It's every minute I stole from exhaustion to make it. It's my love measured in stitches." James excused himself shortly after and went up to his study. But Sarah's words echoed in his head. My love measured in stitches. When was the last time he had measured his love for Emma in anything other than money? When had he sacrificed something real, something of himself, to make her happy? He sat at his desk and opened his computer, pretending to work. But instead, he found himself looking at photos of Emma he kept in a digital folder. The girl on her first day of school, holding an expensive backpack, her expression solemn. Emma, on her 7th birthday, surrounded by gifts, not smiling. Emma at last Christmas, sitting alone under a 3-meter tree professionally decorated. In none of the photos did she look truly happy. In none of the photos did he appear with her. He closed the computer and rubbed his face with his hands. Success, he had always believed, was about giving your family everything you never had. But looking at those photos, thinking about Sarah singing while she cleaned, preparing to surprise her daughter 8 months in the future, James began to suspect that perhaps he had confused everything from the beginning. Perhaps real success wasn't measured in bank accounts or properties. Perhaps it was measured in stitches of love, patiently distributed over time. May arrived with warmer temperatures and Emma's birthday approaching like an inevitable storm. James found himself, for the first time in years, feeling anxious about a family event. He usually hired professional event organizers and showed up on party day with a polite smile and an extravagant gift. His participation ended there. This year, however, something had changed. Perhaps it was the casual conversations with Sarah, who frequently mentioned small details of Lily's life, the drawings her daughter made at school, the words she learned, the friends she made. Sarah knew everything about her daughter. James realized with growing shame that he barely knew Emma. He decided this birthday would be different. "I want to be more involved in the planning," he told Maria, Emma's full-time nanny. A woman in her 40s who had practically raised the girl since he and Monica divorced. Maria looked at him with barely disguised surprise. "Of course, Mr. Mitchell. Do you have any ideas in mind?" "I want to know what Emma would like. Not what I think she should like, but what she really wants." Maria smiled kindly. "I'll ask her." 2 days later, Maria returned with answers that left James bewildered. "She says she doesn't want a big party, that she'd prefer something small, maybe just some close friends. She wants to make cookies, says she saw a video online, and she asked if—" Maria hesitated. "If you could be there, not just show up, but really be there, helping." James felt something tighten in his chest. "She said that? That she wants me to be there?" "Yes, sir, in her own words. Do you think Dad could stay this time?" The impact of those words hit him like a punch. His 8-year-old daughter wasn't asking for expensive toys or exotic trips. She was asking for his presence. And the fact that she had to ask for it, that it wasn't something she could take for granted, was a silent accusation against every decision James had made in recent years. But the idea also terrified him. Making cookies, interacting with 8-year-old girls. He had no idea how to do any of that. His world was boardrooms and contracts, million-dollar negotiations and market strategies. How was he supposed to connect with a girl he barely knew? Sarah was in the living room when James came down that afternoon, arranging the sofa cushions with a care he noticed now. She didn't just align them. She placed them so the color combinations created a pleasant visual effect. It was a small detail, one he would never have noticed before, but which revealed something about the woman who cleaned his house. "Sarah, can I ask you something?" She straightened, leaving the last cushion in place. "Of course, Mr. Mitchell." How do you do it with Lily? To connect with her, I mean. How do you know what to say, what to do?" Sarah tilted her head, considering the question seriously. "There's no trick, if that's what you're asking. I just listen to her, really listen. When she tells me about her day, I'm not thinking about the next task or the next problem. I'm there, completely there, even if it's only for 10 minutes, before I have to leave for my next job." She paused. "Children don't need perfection. They need presence." "What if I don't know how to be present? If I've been absent so long, I no longer know how to do it?" Sarah looked at him with a compassion that made him feel vulnerable. "You start again. Children forgive more easily than adults. Emma just needs to know you want to try. It's her birthday soon. She wants to make cookies. With me." A soft smile crossed Sarah's face. "That's beautiful. I don't know how to make cookies." Nobody's born knowing. You learn. Sarah thought for a moment. You know what? Lily and I make cookies every month. It's our tradition. If you want, I could teach you some basic recipes. Nothing fancy, just simple cookies a girl would enjoy making. James felt unexpected gratitude. Would you do that? Gladly, Mr. Mitchell. Love is learned by doing. Thus began one of the strangest weeks of James's life. Sarah came early on the days she was scheduled to work at the house, and after finishing her cleaning tasks, spent an hour in the kitchen teaching James how to make vanilla cookies, chocolate chip cookies, sugar cookies that could be decorated. At first, James was terrible. He burned the first batch, added too much salt to the second, forgot to preheat the oven for the third. But Sarah was patient, correcting his mistakes with gentle humor, showing him how to measure ingredients correctly, how to know when the dough had the right consistency. It's not so different from business, she commented one day, while James nodded awkwardly. You have to follow a recipe. Yes, but you also have to feel when something's right. It's half science, half intuition. James laughed, surprised at how natural it felt to laugh in his own kitchen. I never thought making cookies would require intuition. Everything worthwhile requires intuition. That's the part you can't buy or delegate. It has to come from here. Sarah touched her chest. From the heart. During those morning sessions, James learned more about Sarah. He discovered that she studied business administration at night, dreaming of someday opening her own small business, perhaps a sewing workshop, that she sang in her church choir on Sundays, the only day she allowed herself some rest, that she had been born in a small town in Mexico and had come to the United States at 19, alone and without speaking English, pursuing the same dream as millions before her, a better life. Don't you have family here? James asked, as they decorated cookies with colored frosting. My mother died when Lily was 2. Cancer. My father went back to Mexico. He says he's too old for this country. My brothers are there too. Sarah added a little sugar star to a cookie. Sometimes it's lonely, but Lily and I have each other. It's enough. James thought about his own family. His parents still lived in the city, 20 minutes away, but he rarely saw them. Visits were tense, full of passive-aggressive comments about his lifestyle, his divorce, how he was raising Emma. Eventually, he had stopped trying. It was easier to send them money at Christmas and call briefly on birthdays. Do you ever regret it? He asked. Coming here, all the hard work. Sarah considered the question seriously. There are difficult days. Days when I'm so tired I can barely keep my eyes open. Days when I miss my country, my family, the simpler life I had. She looked up at James. But then Lily comes running from school with a drawing she made, or tells me she got a good grade on a test, or hugs me and says, I love you, Mom. And I know every sacrifice is worth it. I'm not building my life, Mr. Mitchell. I'm building hers. The simple truth of those words settled in James like a stone. What was he building? A technology empire, yes. A fortune that would last generations. But what was he leaving Emma beyond money? What memories was he creating with her? What life lessons was he teaching her? The answer shamed him. None. Emma's birthday arrived with clear skies and the promise of pleasant temperatures. James had cancelled all his meetings, something Rebecca had questioned extensively. It's just a birthday, she had said. Hire better organizers if last year's weren't satisfactory. It's not about the organizers, James had responded. It's about me being there. Rebecca had looked at him as if he were speaking a foreign language, but had eventually relented, though not without making clear she considered the decision unnecessary. James woke up early that morning with a strange feeling in his stomach. Nerves. Anxiety. He was nervous about his own daughter's birthday, as if it were a crucial business presentation. He went down to the kitchen at 7 in the morning and found that Sarah had already arrived, even though it wasn't her day to work. She had insisted on coming to help at no extra charge, simply because she wanted to make sure everything went well. Good morning, Mr. Mitchell, Sarah greeted cheerfully, already wearing an apron. Ready for the big day? Honestly, I'm terrified. Sarah laughed, and the sound was comforting. You'll do fine. Just remember, it's about Emma, not about making perfect cookies. She's going to love that you're there, even if you burn a whole dozen. Emma came down at 8, still in pajamas, rubbing her eyes. When she saw her father in the kitchen, wearing an apron, something Sarah had insisted he wear, her expression was pure shock. "Dad? What are you doing?" James felt his heart race. This was the moment. This was when he could begin to rebuild what he had let deteriorate. "Good morning, sweetheart. Happy birthday." He knelt to be at her height. "I thought we could make those cookies together. You and me, would you like that?" Emma's eyes opened wide, and for a moment James feared she would say no, that it was too late, that he had wasted too many opportunities. But then she nodded, first slowly, then with more enthusiasm. "Really? You're going to make cookies?" "I'm going to try. Sarah taught me some things, but I'll probably need your help. Do you think you can teach me?" A smile, small but genuine, appeared on Emma's face. James realized with a jolt of emotion that he hadn't seen his daughter smile like that in months, maybe years. "Yes, I can teach you, Dad." The next few hours were chaotic, messy, and absolutely perfect. James and Emma made cookies together, dirtying every surface of the immaculate kitchen. Flour ended up in both their hair, chocolate on their cheeks, butter on the floor. Sarah supervised from the side, offering advice when needed but mostly letting them work together. Emma turned out to be surprisingly good at giving instructions. She showed her father how to measure correctly, how to mix without splashing too much, though both splashed anyway, how to use cookie cutters in star and heart shapes. "You have to press firmly but not too hard," Emma explained seriously, "or the dough sticks to the cutter." "You're an excellent teacher," Aunt James said, and he meant it. Emma blushed with pleasure. During the process they talked, really talked, probably for the first time in Emma's life. James asked her about school, her friends, her favorite classes. He discovered that his daughter loved art, that she drew in every free moment she had, that her best friend was named Sophie, and together they had invented a secret language, that her favorite subject was science, because the teacher did interesting experiments every week. "Why did you never tell me about all this?" James asked as they decorated the cooled cookies with colored frosting. Emma shrugged, concentrating on drawing a pink heart on a star-shaped cookie. "I don't know. You're always busy, and when you're not busy, you seem, I don't know, like you're thinking about other things." His daughter's honesty was like an arrow straight to James's heart. "You're right, and I'm sorry. I'm going to try harder, okay? I want to know about your day, your friends, everything." Emma looked up, studying his face as if searching for signs of sincerity. "Really? Really?" She nodded slowly. "Okay, then I'll tell you." The birthday party was completely different from previous years' extravaganzas. Only 5 of Emma's friends came, girls she knew from school and really got along with. There were no hired magicians or giant inflatable castles. Instead, the girls decorated their own cookies, played simple games in the garden, painted T-shirts with special dyes Sarah had suggested. James stayed during the entire party, helping with games, serving refreshments, even participating in a cookie decorating contest. He came in last, but Emma defended him, saying his cookies had unique style. Toward the end of the afternoon, when the last friends had left and Emma was in the living room looking at her gifts, Sarah approached James in the kitchen where he was awkwardly cleaning. "You did very well today, Mr. Mitchell." James stopped washing the plate he had in his hands and looked at Sarah. "Thank you for everything. Not just for helping with the party, but for teaching me, for showing me this was what mattered." Sarah smiled warmly. "I didn't teach you anything you didn't already know. Deep down, you just needed to remember. I thought success was giving Emma everything I never had, the best house, the best clothes, the best education. And all those things are good, but they're not love." Sarah took the plate from his hands and rinsed it properly. Love is time, it's attention. It's being present even when it's uncomfortable or difficult. It's about making imperfect cookies together, instead of buying perfect ones from an expensive bakery. James nodded, feeling the weight of truth in her words. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure. How do you do it? How do you maintain that connection with Lily when you work so many hours?" Sarah dried her hands on a kitchen towel, thinking, "I protect our time together as if it were sacred. Every night, no matter how tired I am, we sit together for at least half an hour before bed. I read to her, or she reads to me, or we just talk. Sunday mornings, we have breakfast together, just the two of us, and we cook something special. It's not much time, but it's our time, quality over quantity." She paused. "Though, honestly, I wish I could give her more quantity too. You're doing an incredible job with her. I'm doing the best I can, same as you today." At that moment, Emma came running into the kitchen, her face glowing with happiness. "Dad, look what Sophie gave me." She held up a set of professional watercolors. "She says I'm very good at drawing and I should practice more." James knelt again to her height. "Sophie's right. I'd like to see your drawings someday. Would you show them to me? Do you really want to see them?" "Really?" Emma practically jumped with excitement. "I have a whole notebook full. Come, I'll show you now." She took her father's hand and pulled him toward the stairs. James looked back at Sarah, who waved him on with a cheerful gesture and a smile that said, "Go ahead. This is what matters." That night, after Emma fell asleep, James had read her 3 stories and she had fallen asleep smiling. He stood in the doorway of her room, watching her. The room was full of expensive things: a canopy bed imported from Italy, porcelain dolls on glass shelves, a 3-story dollhouse that cost more than Sarah's car. But what really filled the room were the drawings. They were everywhere, stuck on the walls with tape, stacked on the desk, some awkwardly framed with cardboard and decorated with stickers. Drawings of flowers and animals, castles and dragons, happy families and houses with gardens. In one of the most recent drawings, he saw 3 figures, one tall in a suit, one small in a dress, and between them, red hearts. At the bottom, in the irregular writing of an 8-year-old girl, it said, "Me and Dad making cookies." James felt tears stinging his eyes. His daughter had drawn this before it happened, as if it were a wish, a hope for something she longed for but didn't dare ask directly. He sat on the floor next to Emma's bed, leaning against the wall, and finally let the tears fall. He cried for all the birthdays he had missed, for all the conversations he never had, for all the drawings he never saw. He cried for his daughter's childhood that had been lost while he chased millions he didn't need. But he also felt something else. Hope. Today had been different. Today he had been present. And though he couldn't recover lost time, he could make sure not to lose any more. He stayed there until past midnight, on the floor of his daughter's room, surrounded by her drawings, finally understanding what Sarah had tried to teach him. Real success wasn't measured in dollars. It was measured in moments. It was measured in imperfect cookies and shared laughter. It was measured in drawings stuck with tape on white walls. It was measured in love. The days after Emma's birthday brought a subtle but significant change in the Mitchell household dynamics. James began arriving home earlier from work, not every day, but more frequently than had been his custom in years. He found excuses to be home. He would review contracts in his home study instead of the office, schedule video calls from the living room instead of the corporate boardroom. Rebecca noticed the change immediately. "You're becoming domestic," she commented with a tone that oscillated between humor and criticism during an executive meeting. "Last week you cancelled 3 dinners with potential clients." "I rescheduled them," James corrected. "I didn't cancel them." "To be home by 6 in the evening, James. Those dinners are where real business gets closed. Business can wait until 7. Rebecca looked at him as if he had declared the earth was flat. "Who are you and what did you do with my partner?" It was a valid question. James himself wasn't completely sure of the answer. He only knew that something had awakened in him the night of Emma's birthday, something that had been asleep or perhaps dead for years, an awareness that his daughter was a real person, with dreams and fears and a desperate need for his attention, and that if he didn't make changes now, soon it would be too late. Sarah continued coming to the house 3 times a week, but the nature of her work had evolved strangely. Yes, she cleaned and organized, but she had also become something more, a constant presence, someone James could talk to without the layers of corporate formality that wrapped all his other relationships. One afternoon in early June, James came down to the kitchen and found Sarah reorganizing the flower arrangement on the center island. She wasn't just moving it around. She was changing the entire arrangement, removing some flowers, adding greenery from garden plants, creating something that looked more natural, more alive. "Did you study floral design too?" James asked with a smile. Sarah startled slightly, then laughed. "Not formally, but when I made wedding dresses, I often helped brides plan the complete look: dress, accessories, bouquets. You learn to see how colors and shapes work together." She stepped back, evaluating her work. "Composition is the same, whether in fabric or flowers. It's about balance." James approached to see better. The original arrangement, done by the weekly gardening service, had been symmetrical and formal. Sarah's was asymmetrical, but somehow more balanced, more interesting to the eye. "It's beautiful." "Thank you." Sarah hesitated, then added, "If you don't mind me saying, Mr. Mitchell, this house has everything money can buy, but sometimes it feels empty, like it's waiting for someone to really live in it." James considered this. She was right, of course. He had it professionally decorated when he bought it, spending a small fortune on a designer who had filled every room with designer furniture and expensive art. But nothing in the house truly reflected who he was, or who Emma was. It was like a luxury hotel, impressive but impersonal. "How do you make a place feel like a home?" he asked. Sarah thought while finishing with the flowers. "You fill it with things you love, not things that impress. Photos of people who matter, objects that tell stories, handmade things, imperfect." She smiled. "In my apartment, Lily and I have a whole wall covered with her drawings. Each one is stuck with tape, some are wrinkled, the colors are fading. But when I walk in and see that wall, I know I'm home." James thought about Emma's drawings, those he had discovered in her room. The girl had real talent, but he had never paid attention. He had never framed one, never suggested hanging any in the living room. "Emma draws a lot," he said. I should do something with her drawings." "You should ask her which ones she wants to display. Let her decide. That would make her feel like her things matter here." It was such simple, obvious advice, but James would never have thought of it himself. He had spent so much time making all the decisions, controlling every aspect of his life, that it hadn't occurred to him that his daughter also deserved a voice in her own home. That afternoon, when Emma returned from school, James made her the proposal. "What would you think about decorating some walls with your drawings?" Emma, who was eating an apple on the kitchen island, looked at him with suspicion. "Are you serious?" "Completely. We could buy nice frames, or just hang them as they are. You decide. Don't you think it would look messy?" "I think it would look like someone really lives here." Emma's eyes lit up with an excitement she tried to contain but couldn't. "Can I choose which ones?" "They're your drawings, of course you can choose." In the next hour, Emma and James went through all the drawings she had accumulated. The girl explained each one, what had inspired her, what story it told, which were her favorites. James listened, really listened, fascinated by his daughter's inner world that he had been ignoring. Finally, they selected 20 drawings to be professionally framed and another 10 to hang informal gallery style in the family room. The next day, James hired a framer who came to the house, and together, he and Emma decided exactly where each piece would go. When they finished, the transformation was remarkable. The room that had been a cold space full of expensive abstract art now had explosions of color and childish creativity. It wasn't professional or elegant in the traditional sense, but it felt alive. It felt like it mattered. Emma stood in the center of the room, slowly turning to see all her drawings on display. "It's like a museum of me." "You're worthy of a museum," James said, and he meant it completely. Sarah, who had been watching from the doorway while folding clean laundry, smiled broadly but said nothing. She didn't need to. The moment spoke for itself. A week later, James was working in his home study when he heard voices coming from the kitchen. He recognized Sarah's, but there was another, higher-pitched, full of youthful energy. He approached quietly to the hallway and looked toward the kitchen. Sarah had brought Lily, her 7-year-old daughter, something she occasionally did when the neighbor who normally watched the girl wasn't available. James had seen Lily briefly in the past, but had never paid real attention. Now, watching them interact while hoping they wouldn't notice him, he saw something that hit him with unexpected force. Lily was sitting on the kitchen island, her legs dangling, talking animatedly about her day at school, while Sarah prepared a simple snack of cookies and milk. Not homemade cookies, James noted, but an economical brand in a plastic package. Yet the way Sarah served them, on a nice plate with a carefully folded napkin, transformed them into something special. And then the teacher said my project was the best in the class, Lily said with evident pride. I made a volcano with baking soda and vinegar, and it really exploded, Mommy. It was amazing. I'm so proud of you, my love. Sarah kissed the crown of her daughter's head. Did you save the photos I asked you to take? Yes, they're in my backpack. Can I eat 3 cookies today, since it was a special day? 2 cookies and half an apple. That's the deal. Okay. Lily didn't protest, accustomed to the practical negotiations that defined her life. Mommy, when are we going to finish my Christmas dress? This weekend if we finish everything else early. Will it fit me well? Will it look pretty? Sarah's expression softened with a love so pure that James felt a pang of envy. It's going to fit you perfectly, my darling, like it was made by angels. But you made it, not angels. You're my angel, so it counts the same. Lily laughed, the sound filling the kitchen like music. James noticed details he would have previously ignored. Lily's clothes were clean but clearly used, probably bought second-hand or received as donations. Her shoes were worn but well cared for. Her backpack was an economical brand, decorated with stickers she had put on herself. But the girl radiated happiness, not the superficial happiness of getting expensive toys, but a deep joy that came from knowing she was completely loved. James thought about Emma, who had everything money could buy, but who had spent most of her life feeling alone. Which girl was really more fortunate? He decided to make himself present, instead of continuing to observe secretly. Good afternoon, he said, entering the kitchen with deliberate casualness. Sarah straightened immediately, switching to professional mode. Mr. Mitchell, I didn't know you were home. I asked Maria for permission to bring Lily. I hope there's no problem. No problem at all. James smiled at the girl. Hi, Lily. I'm Mr. Mitchell. Lily looked at him with curiosity without fear, her large brown eyes studying him. Hi, my mommy works for you. That's right, and she does excellent work. I know. My mommy is the best at everything. The simple, confident statement made James smile. I have a daughter your age. Well, a bit older. She's 8 years old. Can I meet her? Lily asked with the unfiltered enthusiasm of childhood. Sarah intervened quickly. Lily, honey, Mr. Mitchell is busy. We can't... Actually, James interrupted, I think Emma is in her room. If you don't mind waiting a few minutes, I can ask her if she'd like to come down to meet you. Sarah opened her mouth as if to protest, but James was already leaving the kitchen. He found Emma in her room, as expected, drawing at her desk. Emma, there's a girl downstairs who wants to meet you. Her name is Lily. She's Sarah's daughter. Emma looked up, surprised. Really? Really? Would you like to come down? For a moment it seemed like Emma wanted to say no, but then James saw something change in her expression, curiosity mixing with caution. Okay. The 2 girls met in the kitchen with the initial shyness typical of their age. Lily was the first to break the ice, as James had suspected she would. Is it true this is your house? It's very big. You could probably have races inside. Emma laughed slightly. It's big. Sometimes it's too big. It feels empty. Our house is small, but it's full of things. My mommy says you don't need much space to be happy. You just need love. The simplicity of the statement made Sarah blush, but Lily continued without noticing. Want to see what I did at school today? I have photos on my mommy's phone. Soon the 2 girls were bent over the phone, Lily explaining animatedly about her volcano project, while Emma listened with growing interest. James and Sarah moved away slightly, giving them space. I'm sorry, Sarah said quietly. Lily can be very direct. It's refreshing, James responded honestly. Emma needs more friends like that. Real kids, not just classmates whose parents are business contacts. They watched the girls interact for several more minutes. Lily had taken out a small notebook from her backpack and was showing Emma some drawings she had made. Emma, in turn, was sharing her own drawing techniques. They're good together, Sarah observed. Yes, they are. A thought began forming in James's mind, something that would have been unthinkable barely a month ago, but the last weeks had changed something fundamental in his perspective. "Sarah, would you like to bring Lily more frequently? Not just when you don't have childcare, but regularly. The girls could spend time together after school, maybe Saturdays too." Sarah looked at him with surprise. "I don't want to impose, Mr. Mitchell. You've already given me so much by allowing me to work here with flexible hours." "It's not an imposition, it's—" James searched for the right words. "It's good for Emma, having a real friend, and honestly, it's good for me too, reminding me what matters." Sarah studied his face for a long moment, as if searching for hidden motives. Apparently satisfied with what she saw, she nodded slowly. "If you're sure, and if the girls want to, then I'd love to. I'm sure." That night, after Sarah and Lily left, James sat with Emma in the family room, surrounded by her drawings on the walls. "Did you like Lily?" he asked. Emma nodded, but there was something thoughtful in her expression. "She's different from the girls at my school." "Different how?" "I don't know. More real, I guess. Like she's not pretending to be someone else." Emma paused. "Dad, why did her clothes look old? But she seemed so happy." It was a difficult question, one that touched on topics James had avoided discussing with his daughter. But if he was going to have a real relationship with Emma, he would have to be honest with her about how the world worked. "Lily and her mom don't have much money," James explained carefully. "Sarah works very hard to give Lily everything she needs, but they can't buy the expensive things we have. So she's poor. That's a word many people don't like, but yes, compared to us they have less money. But notice, Emma, Lily is happy, really happy, because her mom gives her something money can't buy. What's that? Time, attention, love she can feel every day." Emma processed this in silence for a moment. "We have money, but she has her mom all the time she can." "Exactly. Which is better?" The question was like an arrow straight to James's heart, because he knew the answer, and he knew that for years he had been giving Emma the wrong thing. "Love is always better," he said softly. "Money can buy things, but it can't buy the moments that really matter. It can't buy someone really knowing you and loving you for who you are." Emma snuggled against his side, something she hadn't done in years. "I think you're finally getting to know me, Dad. I like it." James wrapped his arm around his daughter, feeling tears threaten to fall. "I like it too, sweetheart. I like it too." As they sat there, in the comfortable silence of real connection, James knew something irreversible had changed in him. He couldn't go back to being the man he had been, the man who measured success only in financial figures and corporate power. Sarah Collins, with her $11 an hour salary and her hand-sewn dress, had taught him more about real success than all his business mentors combined, and they were just beginning to scratch the surface of that lesson. June progressed with summer heat settling over the city. The routine at the Mitchell house had changed dramatically in recent weeks. Lily came with Sarah almost every day now, and the two girls had become inseparable. They spent afternoons drawing together, playing in the garden, or simply talking about the things that matter to girls their age: school, friends, dreams about the future. James discovered he enjoyed having them around. The house felt more alive, warmer. The girls' laughter filled spaces that had previously been empty of human sound, but not everyone was happy with the changes. Rebecca Anderson had been watching the transformations in James with growing alarm. The partner she had known for 12 years, the man who lived and breathed business, who never let emotions interfere with business decisions, seemed to be disappearing, replaced by someone who talked about quality time and what really matters. One afternoon in late June, Rebecca appeared without prior notice at James's mansion. He was in the garden, watching Emma and Lily try to build a birdhouse with a kit he had bought, when he heard the doorbell. Maria answered, and moments later, Rebecca walked out to the garden, her high heels sinking slightly into the grass. "James, we need to talk." He stood up from the garden chair, surprised by her appearance. "Rebecca, what are you doing here?" "Trying to find my partner, apparently." Her tone was sharp. "Do you have a moment? In private?" They entered the study, and Rebecca closed the door harder than necessary. "What's going on with you?" she asked without preamble. "In the last month, you've cancelled or postponed dozens of important meetings. You declined the invitation to the tech conference in San Francisco, something we've attended together for 10 years. And now I find out you're considering rejecting CompuGlobal's offer." "I'm not considering rejecting it. I already rejected it." Rebecca looked as if he had slapped her. "What? When?" "Yesterday. I sent them a polite but firm email declining their offer, without consulting me, without even discussing it." "I thought I had been clear about my feelings on it." Rebecca paced the study, clearly trying to control her temper. "That offer would have made us both absurdly rich, richer than we already are. Why the hell would you reject it?" James leaned against his desk, considering how to explain something he barely understood himself. "Because I don't need more money, Rebecca. Neither of us do. We already have more than we could spend in 2 lifetimes. That offer would have meant selling the company we built, losing control of our vision, essentially becoming CompuGlobal employees. For what? For bigger numbers in bank accounts that are already bloated. For security. For freedom. For being able to retire and do whatever you want with your life. I can already do whatever I want with my life. And what I want is to be a better father to Emma. To be present. To build something that matters beyond money." Rebecca looked at him as if he were a stranger. "Who brainwashed you? Was it some self-help book, a motivational guru? Because the James I know would never talk like this." James thought about Sarah, about their morning conversations about cookies and parenting, and what really matters in life. He thought about how she worked 80 hours a week for a fraction of what he earned in an hour, but had a connection with her daughter he was only beginning to build with his. "It's not brainwashing, it's awakening." "It's stupidity," Rebecca snapped. "Look at yourself. Playing Father of the Year, rejecting business opportunities. You know what they're saying in the industry? That James Mitchell is losing his edge, that he's going soft. I don't care what they say. You should care. Our reputation is everything in this business." "No, Rebecca, relationships are everything. Integrity is everything. Building something worthwhile is everything. Our reputation in the industry is that we're ruthless and successful. But at what cost?" Rebecca crossed her arms. "You knew what you were signing up for when we started this company. We both agreed business came first, that we would sacrifice whatever was necessary to get to the top. And we got to the top. But now that I'm here looking at the view, I realize it's not as impressive as I thought it would be." James approached the window, looking toward the garden where Emma and Lily still struggled with their birdhouse, their laughter floating through the glass. "You know what's impressive? That. 2 girls building something together, helping each other, being happy for reasons that have nothing to do with money or status." "Please, stop. You sound like a greeting card commercial." James turned to her, and for the first time he saw Rebecca not as his equal, his partner, but as someone who was still trapped in the same trap he had been in, believing external success could fill internal voids. "Are you happy, Rebecca?" The question clearly caught her off guard. "What? Of course I'm happy." "Really? When was the last time you did something just for joy? Not because it advanced your career or impressed someone?" Rebecca opened her mouth, then closed it. A shadow crossed her face. "That's an unfair question." "It's the fairest question there is." James sighed. "Look, I'm not asking you to change. I'm not judging you for wanting to stay in the rat race, but I'm out of that race. And it turns out there's life outside of it. There's mediocrity outside of it. There's meaning outside of it." They stood staring at each other, an abyss of mutual incomprehension opening between them. Finally, Rebecca spoke in a colder, more professional voice. "I need to know if you're still committed to this company, because if you're not, we need to discuss dissolving our partnership. I can't run Mitchell Tech with a partner who has 1 foot out the door. I don't have 1 foot out the door. I'm just recalibrating what matters. I can still be an effective partner while also being a present father. Time will tell." Rebecca headed toward the door, then stopped. "By the way, I saw your cleaning employee at a cafe last week. She was drawing clothing designs. Pretty impressive, actually. I took a photo." She pulled out her phone and showed it to James. It was an image of Sarah sitting at a small table in an economical cafe, bent over a worn notebook. The sketches that could be seen were elaborate, professional, full of creativity and technical skill. James felt his heart race. Sarah had told him she had been a seamstress, but seeing evidence of her talent like this, captured in a stolen moment, made him realize how much potential was being wasted in cleaning jobs. "They're exceptional," he said. "They are. I thought you'd like to know. Your cleaning employee apparently has more creative talent than most of the designers you hire for corporate events." Rebecca put away her phone. "Goodbye, James. I hope you find what you're looking for before you lose what you already have." After she left, James stood in the study for a long time, looking at the photo Rebecca had shown. There was something profoundly unfair about a world where Sarah's talent was hidden, used only in moments stolen from exhaustion, while he had more money than he knew what to do with. An idea began forming in his mind. It was risky, probably inappropriate, definitely complicated, but it also seemed like the only right thing in a world of wrong decisions. If Sarah had taught him about real value, about what mattered beyond money, perhaps he could do something to restore what had been unjustly taken from her, not as charity, not as her employer, but as someone who was finally learning the difference between the power of money and the power of meaning. Continue to chapters 8 to 14. July arrived with suffocating heat and a crisis that threatened to consume everything James had built. The call came on a Monday morning early, when the sun was barely beginning to warm the study windows. It was Robert Vega, his CFO, with a tense voice. "James, you need to come to the office immediately. Technova has made a hostile offer. They want to buy Mitchell Tech, with or without your consent. They're contacting our minority shareholders directly." James felt his blood run cold despite the heat. "How much are they offering?" $2.3 billion. It's an offer many of our investors won't be able to refuse. I'll be there in 30 minutes. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of legal meetings, calls with investors, corporate defense strategies. James worked 16, 18, sometimes 20 hours a day, trying to protect the company he had built from scratch. Rebecca was in her element, ruthless and brilliant, coordinating their response with military precision. But every hour he spent at the office was an hour he didn't spend with Emma. Drawing afternoons were cancelled. Dinners together became take-out plates eaten in front of the computer. Weekends disappeared into conference rooms and lawyers' offices. Emma understood, or at least said she did. But James could see the disappointment in her eyes every time he went up to his study instead of staying to watch a movie with her. He could feel the distance growing again between them, that chasm he had worked so hard to close in recent weeks. One night, after 23 straight hours of work, James finally arrived home past 2 in the morning. He was exhausted to the bone, his mind clouded by fatigue and stress. He climbed the stairs on trembling legs, planning to collapse in his bed and sleep at least 4 hours before having to start all over again. He didn't make it to his room. Halfway up the stairs, his legs simply buckled. Fatigue hit him like a physical wave, and he found himself sitting on the steps, unable to move, unable to think clearly. His heart was beating irregularly, his breathing shallow. Maybe he fell asleep there. Maybe he lost consciousness briefly. He wasn't sure. The next thing he knew, there was filtered light from below and a soft voice saying his name. "Mr. Mitchell? James, can you hear me?" He opened his eyes and saw Sarah kneeling beside him on the stairs. It was 5 in the morning. She had just arrived for her morning shift. Her face showed genuine concern. "I'm fine," he tried to say, but his voice came out hoarse, unconvincing. "You're not fine?" Sarah touched his forehead, professional but gentle. "You're burning up. When did you last eat? When did you sleep?" James tried to remember. Had he eaten yesterday? Or had it been the day before? The days had merged into a blurred mass of stress and caffeine. "I'm not sure." Sarah pulled out her phone. "I'm going to call a doctor." "No." James grabbed her wrist weakly. "There's no time. I have a crucial meeting at 8. "You're not going to any meeting in this state." Her voice was firm, brooking no argument. "You can get angry at me later. You can fire me if you want. But I'm not going to let you kill yourself for work." It was the first time Sarah had spoken to him with anything like authority, treating him not as her employer, but as a human being who needed care. And strangely, James felt relieved that someone was taking control. Sarah helped him up and guided him to his room. She made him sit on the bed, then disappeared and returned minutes later with a glass of water, 2 aspirin and a plate with simple toast. "Eat," she ordered. "Drink, then sleep. I'll call your office and tell them you're sick." "I can't. The company will survive a few hours without you. You won't survive many more hours like this." Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, her expression softening. "James, look at yourself. You're destroying your health. You're losing all the progress you made with Emma. Is it worth it? It's my company. I built it from nothing. And if you die defending it, what will you have gained? A pile of money you can't spend from a grave, a daughter who will grow up without a father." She paused. "You have to decide what you'll leave as legacy. It's not money that matters in the end. It's what you built with your own hands and heart. It's whether the people who love you will miss you when you're no longer here." The words resonated in James's clouded mind with the force of absolute truth. He thought about Emma, about how her face had lit up when he had spent time with her. He thought about the drawings on his living room walls, about the cookies they had made together, about the moments he had begun to treasure. Was he willing to sacrifice all that to maintain control of a company that, at the end of the day, was just a corporate entity, not a person who could love him back? "I don't know how to stop," he admitted quietly. "I've been chasing success so long I don't know who I am without it." Sarah gave him a compassionate smile. "Then maybe it's time to find out. Success isn't what you have in the bank, James. It's what you have in your heart." James lay back on the bed, Sarah's words spinning in his head. She took off his shoes carefully, put a blanket over his legs. "Sleep now. I'll take care of everything else." And for the first time in 2 weeks, James slept. Not for just 4 hours, but for 10 full ones, his body finally taking what it desperately needed. When he woke, it was mid-afternoon, the July sun filling his room with golden light. He still felt exhausted, but his mind was clearer than it had been in days. He showered, changed, and went down to find Sarah. He found her in the kitchen preparing dinner for Emma and Lily, who had apparently come after school. "How do you feel?" Sarah asked when she saw him. "Better, thank you for this morning." "You don't have to thank me for taking care of another human being." James leaned against the doorframe, watching her work, the natural grace in her movements as she cut vegetables, the attention she paid to every detail. "You called my office, like you said you would." "Yes, I spoke with your assistant. I told her you were sick and wouldn't be going in today. She mentioned something about rescheduling important meetings. I hope that's okay." "It's more than okay." James paused. "Sarah, can I ask you something? Something personal?" "Sure." "When you lost your job as a seamstress, when your reputation was destroyed, how did you keep going? How did you not give up?" Sarah put down the knife she was using, thinking about the question. "At first I wanted to give up. I spent weeks feeling sorry for myself, angry at the world, at that client who defamed me, at the injustice of it all. But then I looked at Lily and I realized she depended on me. I couldn't afford to stay trapped in bitterness." She turned to look at him. "So I decided that even though I couldn't control what others said about me, I could control who I was. I could choose to be kind instead of bitter, work hard instead of victimizing myself, love completely instead of closing my heart." "Didn't you ever want revenge to clear your name?" "Of course, every day, but revenge requires energy I don't have. I prefer to use that energy building something new rather than destroying the old." She smiled sadly. "Besides, truth has a way of revealing itself eventually. I have faith in that." James thought about the company, about the battle he was fighting, about all the stress and time he was investing in defending his professional reputation. Was it really worth it? Or was he, like Sarah had initially done, getting trapped in bitterness and losing what really mattered? "I think I'm fighting the wrong battle," he said quietly. "Only you can decide that." The girls came running into the kitchen at that moment, laughing about something they had seen in the garden, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics. But Sarah's words stayed with James, planting seeds that would begin to germinate in the following weeks. That night after Sarah and Lily left, James sat with Emma in the family room. His daughter was drawing, as always, but there was something different in her posture, in the way her shoulders were tense. "Emma, is everything okay?" She didn't look up from her drawing. "Yes, Dad." "You don't seem okay. Did something happen?" Emma finally looked at him and James saw tears shining in her eyes. "I thought you were going to stay. I thought we had. I don't know that things were going to be different now, but the last few weeks you've been absent again, like before." The words were like daggers. James moved to sit beside her on the couch. "You're right, and I'm very sorry. It's been a difficult situation at work. But that's no excuse. I promised you I would be more present, and I haven't kept that promise." "Is the company more important than me?" Emma asked in a small voice. "No. God, no, sweetheart. Nothing is more important than you." "Then why do you feel like you have to save it? Can't others do it?" It was such a simple question, so direct with the clear logic of a child, and James didn't have a good answer. "It's complicated. Adults always say that when they don't want to explain things." James laughed, despite the gravity of the moment. "You're right again. Okay. Let me try to explain for real." He took a deep breath. "I built that company from scratch. It's like, imagine if you spent years making the most incredible drawing of your life, something you put all your talent and effort into, and then someone tries to take it away. Wouldn't you fight to keep it?" Emma considered this. "I guess so. But if fighting for the drawing meant I couldn't draw anything else ever again, would it still be worth it?" The childish wisdom hit James hard. Emma had just articulated exactly his dilemma. He was so busy defending what he had built that he wasn't building anything new, especially not a relationship with his daughter. "You're very wise for 8 years old. Lily says sometimes kids see things more clearly than adults because we don't make things complicated. Lily is smart too." Emma nodded, then hesitated before speaking again. "Dad, can I tell you something you might not like?" "You can always tell me what you think, sweetheart." "I think sometimes you're scared." James blinked, surprised. "Scared of what?" "That if you're not important for your work, you won't be important at all. Like you think the only reason you matter is because you have a big company and lots of money." The words came out in a rush, as if Emma had been holding them for a long time. "But I don't love you for the money or the company. I love you because you're my dad, and I wish that was enough for you." James felt like his heart was going to explode. His 8-year-old daughter had just seen right through all his defenses, all the layers of achievements and success he had used to hide his deepest insecurities. The truth was, Emma was completely right. He had spent his entire adult life trying to prove something, demonstrate he was more than the middle-class kid with dreams his family had belittled. And in that process, he had forgotten that his value didn't come from what he owned, but from who he was. "Emma, I don't even know what to say. You're right, completely right." He pulled her into a hug. "And you are more than enough. God, you're everything. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." They stayed embraced for a long time, father and daughter, while something fundamental reordered itself in James's universe. Later that night, after putting Emma to bed, James called Rebecca. "I need you to schedule a meeting with Technova's executive team," he said without preamble. "Why?" "I thought we were rejecting their offer. We're going to negotiate." "What?" "James, this morning you were ready to fight to the death for the company. This morning I was wrong. This afternoon, my 8-year-old daughter gave me some perspective." James laughed softly. "We're going to sell our stake in Mitchell Tech, Rebecca, but we'll do it on our terms. I want protections for our employees, guarantees the company's vision will be maintained, and an orderly transition." Rebecca was silent for a long moment. "Are you sure? This is your legacy?" "No, Rebecca. Emma is my legacy. The company is just something I built. It's time to build something more important. I don't understand you at all lately. I know, and that's okay. Just trust me on this. It's the right decision." After hanging up, James stood in his study for a long time, looking at the illuminated city beyond his windows. He was about to give up something that had defined his identity for years. He should feel terrified, devastated. Instead, he felt light, free. Like finally, after 42 years, he was making the right decision for the right reasons. August brought negotiations with Technova. James and Rebecca spent weeks in conference rooms, crafting an agreement that would protect their employees and preserve Mitchell Tech's vision while transferring control. It was exhausting, but this time, James maintained strict boundaries. No working until 2 in the morning, no cancelling time with Emma. Rebecca remained skeptical of the whole change, but was professional enough not to interfere. They worked well together, as they always had, but there was a new distance between them, an understanding that their paths would soon diverge. In the midst of all this, James made a mistake, one that almost ruined the most valuable thing he had gained in recent months. It was a Friday afternoon. Sarah had just finished her shift and was packing her things to leave when James stopped her in the hallway. "Sarah, wait a moment. I want to talk to you about something." She turned, curious. "Yes, Mr. Mitchell?" James pulled an envelope from his pocket. He had prepared it that morning, filled with cash, quite a lot of cash. "I've been thinking about all the conversations we've had in recent months, about life, about priorities, about what really matters. You've been, I don't know, like an unofficial counselor to me, and I know it sounds weird to say it, but your wisdom, your perspective, has helped me more than years of professional therapy ever did." He extended the envelope. "This is for you, a bonus, for everything you've done for me and for Emma." Sarah took the envelope automatically, then opened it and saw the contents. Her expression changed instantly, something hard and hurt appearing in her eyes. "How much is in here?" $5,000. I know it doesn't compensate for all the time and care, but I wanted to—" "No." Sarah handed the envelope back with a force that surprised him. "No, Mr. Mitchell." "What?" "Sarah, it's just a gift to thank for what? For being your employee, for cleaning your house, because those are the jobs you pay me for." Her voice trembled slightly. "But the conversations, sharing my life, talking to you about Lily and my dreams and my struggles, I didn't do that expecting payment. I did it because I thought we were, I don't know, friends maybe, or at least two human beings connecting as equals." James felt panic growing in his chest. He had completely misinterpreted the situation. "I didn't. I wasn't trying to insult you. Do you think I talk to you out of self-interest, that I share the most vulnerable parts of my life expecting financial rewards?" Tears shone in Sarah's eyes now, but her voice remained steady. "I've spent months trying to show you that a person's value isn't in their bank account, that real relationships aren't transactions. And now you do this, trying to put a price on our friendship, as if everything could be reduced to money." "Sarah, please, that's not how it was. I just wanted to—" "I know what you wanted. You wanted to feel better about taking someone's time, about receiving emotional support. So you try to pay for it, turn it into a business transaction, because that's the only way you know how to relate to people." She wiped her eyes brusquely. "I thought you had changed. I thought you were finally understanding. I have changed, I swear. Then learn this, not everything in life is business. Not everything can be bought or solved with money. Sometimes people just help each other because they care, without expecting anything in return, without needing to balance the books." Sarah grabbed her bag. "I need to leave." "Sarah, wait. I'm sorry. I really am. I didn't mean to—" "I know. And that's the saddest part. You didn't mean to insult me, but you did anyway because you still don't fully understand how real human relationships work." She headed toward the door, then stopped. "I'll be back Monday to do my job, but I need time to process this." And with that, she left, leaving James standing in the hallway with an envelope full of money that suddenly felt like ashes in his hands. The weekend was miserable. James couldn't stop replaying the conversation in his mind, seeing each time more clearly how he had screwed up. Sarah was right. He had tried to turn a genuine friendship into a business transaction because that was his comfort zone. Money was his language, his tool to fix problems. But some things couldn't be fixed with money, and he had been so blind to that, so conditioned by years of solving everything with his wallet, that he had deeply offended someone who had come to matter a lot to him. Sunday night, Emma noticed something was wrong. "Dad, are you sad?" James was sitting in the family room, staring without seeing at the TV Emma had on. "A little bit, sweetheart." Why? I hurt someone's feelings who matters to me, without meaning to, but I did it anyway. Emma came over and sat beside him. Did you tell them you were sorry? Yes, but I don't think it was enough. Was it, Sarah? James looked at her surprised. How did you know? Because she didn't come this weekend with Lily, and she always comes. And because I've seen you talk with her a lot. You're friends. Emma paused. What did you do to her? James sighed. I tried to give her money to thank her for being my friend. And she felt insulted because she thought I was trying to pay for our friendship. Oh, Emma nodded with understanding. Yeah, that was dumb, Dad. I know. It's like when you bought that super expensive dress from Paris for my birthday last year. It didn't make me happy because it wasn't about me. It was about spending money. You're right. What made me happy this year was making cookies with you. Because it was about spending time together. About you caring what I wanted. Emma looked at him with those wise eyes that sometimes amazed him. You have to show Sarah you care in a real way. Not with money. How? I don't know. But it's probably something she needs but can't buy for herself. Like time. Or help with something. Or just, Emma shrugged, just showing her you see her as a person, not as an employee. James hugged his daughter, amazed once again by her wisdom. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just started noticing recently. Monday morning, James woke up early with a plan. When Sarah arrived at 5 in the morning, he found her in the kitchen. Good morning, she said cautiously, clearly surprised to see him awake. Good morning. Sarah, before you start working, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen to everything before you respond, okay? She nodded slowly, leaning against the counter with her arms crossed in a defensive posture. Friday, I made a terrible mistake, not just in offering you money, but in completely misinterpreting the nature of our relationship. You've been incredibly generous with me, sharing your time, your wisdom, your life. And instead of simply appreciating that and being grateful for your friendship, I tried to reduce it to a transaction, as if I could put a price on your kindness. James took a deep breath. I spent the whole weekend thinking about why I did that, and I realized I still have a lot to learn about real human relationships. I've spent so much time in the business world, where everything has a price, that I forgot the best things in life can't be bought. Sarah listened in silence, her expression softening slightly. I can't give back time, I can't undo the insult, but I can apologize sincerely, without excuses, without trying to fix it with money or gifts. Just, I'm sorry, deeply sorry. I value your friendship more than I can express, and I would hate to lose it because of my own stupidity. There was a long silence. Then Sarah sighed, and some of the tension left her shoulders. Thank you for saying that, for understanding. She wiped a tear that had appeared. I'm sorry too. Maybe I reacted too strongly. It's just that I've had to fight my whole life to maintain my dignity, to not be seen just as the maid or the poor woman that people can help from above. When you offered that money, I felt like all our conversations, all the connection I thought we had just been pity on your part. It wasn't pity. It never was that. It's been admiration, genuine respect, and yes, friendship. You're one of the strongest, wisest people I know. Not for what you've achieved materially, but for how you live your life, how you love your daughter, how you stay true to your values, even when it's hard. Sarah smiled, wiping her eyes. Okay, I forgive you. But James... It was the first time she used his first name, and he noticed the change immediately. If we're going to be real friends, it has to be as equals, not as employer and employee when I'm not working, just two people who respect each other. That's exactly what I want. James extended his hand. Friends? Sarah took it, shaking it firmly. Friends. In that moment, without planning it, something fundamentally changed in their relationship. There was no longer the formal distance that had existed even during their most personal conversations. Now they were truly friends. And James realized that this friendship, this genuine connection with another human being based on mutual respect and not on money or power, was more valuable than any business contract he had ever signed. October arrived with color changing in the trees, and a fresh air that promised winter to come. The agreement with Technova was almost finalized. In a month, maybe less, James and Rebecca would no longer be the owners of Mitchell Tech. They would simply be one wealthy. Wealthier than before, with free time neither of them had had in years. Rebecca had decided to retire early, buy a house on the coast, maybe write a book about business strategy. James still wasn't sure what he would do with his future, but surprisingly, that didn't terrify him. For the first time in his life, he had the freedom to figure it out. One afternoon, while Sarah was cleaning the second-floor library, James entered with a determined expression. "Sarah, I need to tell you something. Something I did that I probably should have told you about before." She stopped cleaning, noticing the seriousness in his tone. "What's going on? Remember when you told me about losing your job as a seamstress? About that client who defamed you online?" Sarah nodded, her expression becoming cautious. "Why?" "A few weeks ago I hired a private investigator." Discreetly. James raised a hand when he saw Sarah was about to protest. "Wait, let me explain. It wasn't to pry into your life. It was to find the truth about what really happened with that wedding dress." "James, I told you I left that behind. I know, but it wasn't fair. And after investigating, I discovered exactly what I suspected. That delay wasn't your fault. The client ordered last-minute changes, then refused to pay the additional costs and extra time. When you tried to explain, she distorted everything on social media to avoid looking irresponsible." James pulled out a folder. "I have emails, text messages, testimonies from other people who worked on that wedding. Clear evidence she was lying." Sarah stood very still, processing the information. "Why would you do that?" "Because you're my friend. And because seeing you waste your talent in cleaning jobs when you clearly have exceptional skills as a designer is painful. It's not fair." "What do you plan to do with that information?" "Nothing, unless you give me permission." James closed the folder. "It's your story, your career, your decision. I just wanted you to know the truth is here if you ever decide to use it." Sarah sat down slowly in one of the library chairs, her hands trembling slightly. "For 3 years I've carried this, with knowing that people thought I was unprofessional, unreliable. I lost my reputation, my business, everything I had built." She looked up at James with tears in her eyes. "Why did you do this for me?" "Because someone had to, and because..." James hesitated, then decided to be completely honest. "Because I care about you. You and Lily. You've brought something to my life I didn't know was missing. Humanity, warmth, real purpose. I wanted to be able to give you something in return, not as payment, but as a gesture of genuine friendship." Sarah cried openly now. Years of pain and injustice finally finding an outlet. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything now. Take your time. Think about it. And if you decide you want to clear your name, I know lawyers. And maybe I know some people in the fashion industry who might be interested in your work." "Rebecca?" Sarah laughed through tears, remembering Rebecca had taken that photo of her at the cafe. "Among others, I've been making some discreet calls. There's a high-end boutique downtown. The owner is looking for a talented designer for exclusive pieces. I showed her some of your sketches, the ones Rebecca photographed. She's very interested in meeting you." Sarah stood up, walking to the window, clearly overwhelmed. "This is too much. I don't know if I can." "You can. You're incredibly talented, Sarah. The world should see that talent. Lily should see her mother doing the work she loves, not just surviving." James approached. "It's not charity. It's justice, and recognition of a skill that should never have been buried." Sarah turned to him, and on her face James saw a mixture of fear, hope, and gratitude. "If I do this, if I try to recover my career, it will change everything. I won't be able to work 3 jobs. I'll need time to design, to build a new portfolio, to meet with potential clients." "I know, and that's okay. More than okay." James smiled. "Besides, honestly, the house has never been cleaner. I think we'll survive with a regular cleaning service instead of 3 times a week." Sarah laughed despite the tears. "You've given me so much. I don't know how to thank you." "You've already given me more than you imagine. You gave me perspective when I was lost. You showed me how to be a father when I had forgotten. You reminded me that life is more than business deals and bank accounts." James extended his hand. "Let's call it even." Sarah took his hand, but instead of shaking it, she pulled James into a hug. It was brief, but genuine, the kind of hug only given between true friends. "Thank you," she murmured, "for seeing beyond the cleaning employee, for seeing me. You were always visible, Sarah. It just took me time to learn to look correctly." Now the following weeks were a whirlwind of changes. Sarah left 2 of her 3 jobs, keeping only the hours with James, more for the friendship and because the girls loved spending time together than for financial need. She began meeting with the boutique owner, showing her designs, discussing possibilities. The evidence James had gathered was eventually shared discreetly in the right fashion industry circles. The client who had defamed Sarah faced uncomfortable questions. Though she never issued a complete public apology, she did delete her negative posts and, through an intermediary, offered financial compensation that Sarah rejected, but which validated her version of events. Emma and Lily had become inseparable. They spent every afternoon together, either at the mansion or occasionally at Sarah's small apartment, where Emma discovered she didn't need expensive toys to have fun. The 2 girls drew, invented games, made plans for the future that always included being best friends forever. James watched all this with a mixture of joy and melancholy. Joy for the positive changes, for the real relationships that were forming. Melancholy because he knew he would soon have to make another important decision. His feelings for Sarah had evolved beyond friendship. It wasn't something he had sought or even wanted, given the power imbalance and complexities of their situation, but the heart rarely respects practical considerations. She was intelligent, strong, genuine in ways no one in his corporate world had ever been. But more than that, she saw him. Not James Mitchell, the successful millionaire, but James, the man with doubts and insecurities, trying to be better, struggling to connect with his daughter, slowly learning what really mattered. But he couldn't tell her. Not while there was that imbalance, that employer-employee dynamic, even if technically she no longer worked full-time for him. Not while she was rebuilding her career with his help. It would be inappropriate, potentially harmful. So he kept those feelings, letting them exist in silence, waiting to see what the future brought. November brought the first true cold of winter, and with it, a crisis James hadn't anticipated. Rebecca, finally committed to her post-Mitchell tech future, decided to accelerate things in a spectacular way. During a crucial board meeting, where they were supposed to finalize the last details of the Technova agreement, Rebecca did something unexpected. She publicly exposed James's distractions. "I think the board deserves to know," she said in a clear voice, each word measured, "that Mr. Mitchell's recent decisions have been heavily influenced by unprofessional advice, specifically by his domestic employee, who apparently has become his unofficial personal counselor in business matters." The room erupted in murmurs. Board members looked at each other with expressions ranging from confusion to shock. James felt his blood freeze in his veins, not from shame, but from rage at Rebecca's betrayal, who was willing to humiliate Sarah to make a point. "Rebecca, this is completely inappropriate." "Inappropriate?" Rebecca laughed humorlessly. "You know what's inappropriate? Making decisions that affect billions of dollars based on conversations with someone who earns $11 an hour cleaning floors. That's inappropriate." One of the board members, Ernest Vargas, an older man who had invested in Mitchell Tech from the early days, raised his hand. "James, is this true? Have you been taking advice from domestic staff?" It was the decisive moment. James could deny, minimize, try to save his professional reputation, or he could do the right thing. He stood up, looking directly at Rebecca, then scanning the room, making eye contact with each board member. "Yes," he said clearly. "It's true, I've been talking with Sarah Collins, who works in my house, about important decisions in my life. Not specifically about business strategy, but about priorities, about what really matters, about the kind of legacy I want to leave." Rebecca opened her mouth to speak, but James continued, his voice gaining strength. "And you know what? I'm proud of it. Sarah is one of the wisest people I know. She doesn't have an MBA, hasn't read the latest business books, but she understands something many of us have forgotten, that real success isn't measured in dollars, but in relationships, in integrity, and the positive impact we have on others' lives." He paused. 6 months ago, I was on track to completely lose my daughter. I was working obsessively, accumulating money I didn't need, chasing deals that didn't make me happy. And Sarah, with her perspective from someone who struggles daily but keeps her humanity intact, showed me a different path. Ernest leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. "And that perspective led you to decide to sell the company?" "Partially. But mainly, my 8-year-old daughter asked me if fighting for a drawing was worth it, if it meant not being able to draw anything else ever again. She made me see I was so busy defending what I had built that I wasn't building anything new." James looked at each board member. Selling Mitchell Tech was the right decision. For me, for my family, and honestly, for the company itself. Technova has resources we don't. Under their direction, the company will grow in ways we could never achieve alone. Another board member, a woman named Isabel Torres, spoke. "I appreciate your honesty, James, but the question remains, are you mentally competent to finalize this agreement?" Rebecca clearly has doubts. James turned to Rebecca, seeing on her face the determination of someone who believed she was doing the right thing, protecting business interests. Rebecca is brilliant in business, ruthless when necessary, strategic, incredibly capable. She's been my partner for 12 years, and I value our work together. He paused. But right now she and I value different things. She sees this sale as potentially leaving money on the table, as giving up. I see it as evolving to the next phase of my life. Rebecca stood up, her face red with frustration, and something else, perhaps pain. "I can't work with someone who's become so soft, so sentimental. Business requires coldness, James. It requires making hard decisions without letting emotions interfere. And that's where we fundamentally disagree." James spoke calmly but firmly. "I believe the best business leaders are those who maintain their humanity, who remember that behind every number on a spreadsheet are real people with families and dreams, who understand you can be successful without sacrificing your soul in the process." Ernest tapped the table softly, calling attention. "I've been in business for 50 years, he said. "I built my first company from scratch, just like you, James, and in that time, I've seen many men and women reach the top only to realize the view from up there is lonely and empty." He leaned back in his chair. "My wife died 5 years ago, cancer. In her last days, she told me she regretted all the dinners I spent at the office, all the vacations I cancelled, all the moments I chose work over our family. And you know what? She was right to regret it, because I regret it too." The room fell silent. Ernest continued. "James, if a domestic employee or your 8-year-old daughter or a stray dog gave you the wisdom to not make the same mistakes I made, then you're smarter than me, not weaker, smarter." He looked around the table. "I vote in favor of finalizing the agreement with Technova under the terms James has negotiated, and I vote to thank Rebecca for her years of service, but allow her to pursue other interests if she finds the current leadership unsatisfactory." One by one, the other board members nodded in agreement. The vote was almost unanimous. Rebecca stood for a moment longer, looking betrayed and isolated. Finally, she gathered her things. "I resign effective immediately," she said in a tense voice. "I hope you don't regret this, James." "I won't," he responded softly. "And I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, Rebecca. I truly do." She left without another word, and with that, an era ended. Later that night, James drove home in a state of shock. He had publicly defended his friendship with Sarah. He had finalized the sale of his company. He had seen his partner of 12 years leave. He should feel devastated. Instead, he felt at peace. When he arrived home, he found Sarah in the kitchen with Emma and Lily. All three were decorating fall cookies, their hands covered in colored frosting, laughing about something Lily had said. Sarah saw him first, and her smile faded when she saw his expression. "James, what happened?" Emma ran to him. "Dad, look at the cookies we made. Do you want to help us decorate?" James hugged his daughter, then looked at Sarah over Emma's head. "Some things happened today. Good things, I think, but intense." He smiled tiredly. "Maybe we can talk after the girls go to sleep." Sarah nodded, understanding in her eyes. Of course. Meanwhile, come help us with the cookies. Lily insists she needs more hands to finish all we baked. And so, James spent the next 2 hours decorating cookies with 3 of the most important people in his life, finding comfort in the simplicity of the moment, in the girls' laughter, in Sarah's quiet presence. Sometimes, he thought while decorating a leaf-shaped cookie, the smallest moments are the most meaningful, and it was worth defending those moments, no matter the professional cost. December arrived with the first hint of snow and a sense of finality in the air. The agreement with Technova was complete. James Mitchell was no longer the owner of Mitchell Tech. He was simply James, father, friend, a man with more money than he would need in 10 lifetimes, but finally free from the weight of managing a corporate empire. The first days of freedom were disorienting. James woke up at 6 in the morning out of habit, then realized he had no meetings to attend, urgent emails to answer, crises to solve. It was simultaneously liberating and terrifying. Sarah had flourished in recent weeks. The boutique had hired her services permanently, commissioning her for a complete line of designer dresses. Her name was beginning to circulate again in fashion circles, this time with her reputation restored and recognition of her talent. She was radiant, full of creative energy, working in the business she loved, but there was something pending between them, something unspoken that hung in the air every time they met. James felt it, and he suspected Sarah did too. One afternoon in mid-December, James invited Sarah to his study. She arrived with evident curiosity, entering the space where so many of their significant conversations had occurred. "You wanted to see me?" James closed the door softly, then turned to her. "I need to be honest with you about something. Something I've been keeping because the moment never seemed right, or because I was afraid, or because, well, I'm not sure of all the reasons." He took a deep breath. "But with all the changes in my life, I realized I don't want more secrets. I don't want more unsaid things." Sarah sat down slowly in one of the chairs, her expression cautious but open. "Okay, I'm listening. In recent months, you've changed my life in ways I can't begin to fully express. You showed me how to be a better father, how to value real relationships over material success, how to find meaning beyond work." James paused, searching for the right words, and at some point, without planning it, without even realizing it was happening, "I developed feelings for you. Feelings that go beyond friendship." Sarah blinked, clearly surprised. Her mouth opened slightly, but she said nothing. So James continued, "I'm not telling you this expecting you to feel the same, and I'm not telling you to make you uncomfortable or put pressure on our friendship. I'm telling you because you deserve to know, because you've been honest with me about everything in your life, and I owe you the same honesty." He sat in the chair across from her. "I know there are complexities, the difference in our circumstances, the fact that you worked for me, other people's opinions. But if anything you've taught me, it's that those external things shouldn't dictate what I feel or what's true." Sarah remained silent for a long moment, processing his words. James could see emotions crossing her face, surprise, uncertainty, and something else he couldn't identify. Finally, she spoke in a soft voice. "James, I don't know what to say. I didn't expect this." "I know. And you don't need to say anything now. I just needed you to know." James smiled sadly. "Whatever happens, our friendship is the most important thing to me. I don't want to lose that." Sarah leaned forward, her hands clasped in her lap. "I need time to think, to process. This is a lot, and there are things I have to consider. Lily, my career that's just beginning again, what it would mean for us, for our families. Of course, take all the time you need." Sarah stood up, moving to the window. James could see her reflection in the glass, the line of her shoulders, the way she bit her lip while thinking. "I can tell you this," she said finally, without turning around. "These months with you and Emma have been some of the happiest of my life. Seeing Lily flourish with a friend like Emma, seeing your transformation from a man lost in work to a present father, it's been beautiful. And you've become someone important to me. Someone I trust, someone I deeply respect." But you're not sure if what you feel goes beyond that. I don't know. Sarah finally turned to look at him. And it wouldn't be fair to either of us if I lied about it. I appreciate your honesty, and I appreciate yours. It must have been difficult to tell me this, knowing I might not feel the same. James laughed softly. It was terrifying, but also liberating. Being silently in love is its own kind of prison. In love? Sarah repeated the word quietly, as if testing its weight. Yes, I think so. James stood up, approaching but maintaining respectful distance. But I don't want that to pressure you. I'm not expecting an answer now, or even soon. Just think about it, and know that no matter what you decide, this doesn't change my respect for you or the value of our friendship. Sarah nodded slowly. Okay. I'm going to think about it. I really will. They left that night with something changed between them, something in the air that hadn't been there before. It wasn't uncomfortable exactly, but it was different, more charged with possibility, with potential, with uncertainty. James lay in bed that night, feeling vulnerable but also brave. He had risked his heart, something he hadn't done in years, maybe never in this way. Now he just had to wait and see what the future brought. Christmas Eve arrived with snowflakes falling softly over the city, transforming the world into something magical, silent. James's mansion, once a cold mausoleum of marble and glass, was alive with festive preparations. Emma and Lily had spent the day helping to decorate, hanging ornaments the two had made together, covering the tree with lights and decorations that were more adorable than elegant. James had discovered he liked this aesthetic, much more than the professionally decorated trees of previous years. Sarah arrived early that afternoon, not to work, but as a guest. It was her first Christmas spending social time with James and Emma, outside her role as employee. The last few weeks had been strange between them, a careful dance of normalcy while both processed James's confession. He hadn't pressed, hadn't brought up the subject again, but he felt the tension there, the unanswered question floating between them. When Sarah entered with Lily, James noticed she was carrying a large bag. "What's that?" Emma asked with immediate curiosity. Lily practically bounced with excitement. "It's my Christmas dress, the one Mommy's been making. It's finally finished." Sarah smiled with shy pride. "It's 8 months of work. I thought it would be appropriate to reveal it today." They moved to the family room where Sarah carefully took the dress out of the bag. It was exactly as James had seen it developing over the months. Deep red with white lace, each stitch made by hand, every detail perfect. But seeing it complete, finished, was different. It was a work of art. Lily put it on with her mother's help, and when she turned to show them, her eyes shone with pure joy. "I feel like a princess." "You look like a princess," Emma confirmed with evident admiration. James watched with a lump in his throat, thinking about where this had all begun. Watching Sarah sew in a corner of his study 8 months ago, murmuring about making her daughter feel special. The dress wasn't just fabric and thread. It was love measured in stitches, time stolen from exhaustion, a dream finally realized. But there was more. "Emma," Sarah said softly, "I have something for you too." She pulled out another dress from the bag, this one also handmade, but in a different style. It was dark green with golden details, sophisticated but appropriate for an 8-year-old girl. It wasn't as elaborate as Lily's dress, but it had clearly been made with the same care and skill. "For me?" Emma was astonished. "You made one for me too." Sarah nodded. "You spent the last few months learning to sew with us, and I know you helped with some of the stitches on this dress. I thought you deserved one of your own too." Emma changed quickly, and soon the two girls were standing side by side in handmade dresses, looking radiant. "They look beautiful," James said, feeling tears threaten to fall. "Mommy," Lily said, taking Sarah's hand, "remember when you said this dress was every minute you stole from exhaustion, that it was your love measured in stitches?" Sarah nodded, clearly moved. "Yes, my love. I can feel it. When I wear it, I can feel how much you love me." Sarah knelt and hugged her daughter, tears running freely down her cheeks. James had to look away, his own emotion overwhelming him. The evening continued with a simple but delicious dinner they had all prepared together. It wasn't elaborate or professionally served, but it was shared with laughter and real conversations. It was, James realized, the first real Christmas dinner he had had in years. After dinner, when the girls were in the living room playing with some gifts they had exchanged, James and Sarah found themselves in the kitchen, cleaning together. "It's been a beautiful night," Sarah said softly. "It has been. Thank you for everything. Emma's dress, your friendship, your patience with my awkward confessions." Sarah laughed, but her laugh was nervous. "About that, I've been thinking a lot, like you said I would." James's heart raced. "And?" Sarah put down the plate she was drying, turning to face him. "When I came to this country so many years ago, I had a plan. Work hard, save money, give Lily better opportunities. I never included romance in that plan. There was no time, no space. And after Lily was born, after her father left us, I decided it was better that way. Simpler, less risk of being hurt." James listened in silence, not daring to interrupt. "But then, I met this ridiculously wealthy man who didn't know how to make cookies or connect with his own daughter. A man who had all the money in the world but was completely lost about what mattered." She smiled. "And I saw how he changed. I saw how he really tried to be better. I saw how he put Emma first, even when it meant sacrificing things he had spent years building." "Sarah, let me finish." Her voice was firm but kind. "I saw all that, and I realized I cared. More than I should, considering all the complications. And I spent weeks trying to convince myself it was a bad idea, that we were too different, that it would be too complicated. And?" James could barely breathe. "And then I realized that my whole life I've chosen the complicated path. I came to a foreign country without speaking the language. I raised a daughter alone. I rebuilt a career from scratch after losing everything. Difficult has never stopped me before." She approached. "So why should I let it stop me now? Are you saying—" "I'm saying I'd like to try. Whatever this is between us, I don't have all the answers about how it will work, or what people will think, or how we'll navigate all the complexities. But I think it's worth finding out." Sarah took his hand. "If you still want to, that is." James laughed, the sound coming out like a sob of relief. "If I still want to." "Sarah, I haven't wanted anything more in my life." They looked at each other for a long moment, and then slowly, carefully, as if afraid of breaking something precious, they kissed. It was soft, tentative, perfect. When they pulled apart, both were smiling, something new and fragile but strong being born between them. "This is going to be interesting," Sarah said. "It will be, but something tells me we can handle it." "We? Are we already using we?" "If you want to." Sarah smiled, her eyes shining with joy and a touch of mischief. "I think I do." When they returned to the living room, they found Emma and Lily asleep on the couch, cuddled together under a blanket, still wearing their special dresses. The scene was so perfect, so tender, that James felt his chest tighten with emotion. "Lily does that," Sarah whispered. "Falls asleep anywhere when she's happy." Emma too, apparently. They stood together, watching the two girls, and James realized how far he had come since that April afternoon when he had found Sarah sewing in his study. He had lost a company in the process, but had gained something infinitely more valuable, a family. Not in the traditional sense, perhaps, but in the truest sense. He had a daughter who finally knew and loved him. He had a woman in his life who challenged and supported him in equal measure. He had real connections, relationships based on mutual respect and genuine caring, instead of money or power. "What are you thinking?" Sarah asked quietly. "That I was wrong about almost everything. I thought success was accumulating wealth, building an empire, impressing others." James put his arm around Sarah's shoulders. "But real success is this moment, with these people. It's love and connection and being present for those who matter." Sarah leaned against him. "You know, 8 months ago I started a dress because I wanted to give my daughter something special, something made with love and time and care. I never imagined that dress would change so many lives." "It wasn't just the dress," James said. "It was you. Your example, your wisdom. Your way of living with integrity, even when it was hard. Well then, I guess we changed each other. You gave me back my career, my dignity. You showed me it's okay to accept help, that kindness isn't always charity. And you showed me that true wealth can't be measured in bank accounts. They stayed there a while longer, in silence while the snow continued falling outside and the Christmas tree lights flickered softly. The house, once so empty despite its grandeur, finally felt like a home. Epilogue. 6 months later. Sarah's boutique had grown beyond her wildest dreams. Her dress line had sold out in weeks, with waiting lists extending months. Fashion magazines were featuring her work, praising the way she combined traditional craftsmanship with modern designs. James had used his free time for something he had never anticipated, starting a non-profit foundation focused on helping single mothers start small businesses. He used his connections and business experience to guide women like Sarah, who had talent and ambition but lacked resources and networks. Emma and Lily remained inseparable, true best friends, navigating school and life together with the confidence of girls who knew they were completely loved. And James and Sarah, they were taking things slowly, building a relationship based on mutual respect, deep friendship, and love that grew stronger every day. They didn't live together yet, both conscious of having daughters to consider, transitions to make carefully. But they spent most evenings together, dining as an improvised family, laughing, planning futures. One summer afternoon, James watched Sarah work on a new design at her drawing table. He had set up a studio for her in his house, insisting she needed a dedicated space for her art. She was completely concentrated, biting her lip in that way he had come to adore, her hand moving with assured grace across the paper. "What?" she asked, noticing his gaze. "Just thinking about how lucky I am." Sarah laughed. "You're the richest man I know, literally." "Not in that way, though yes, that way too." James approached. "But I mean lucky to have met you, that you came into my life when you did. I don't know where I'd be now without you." Sarah stood up, walking toward him with a soft smile. Probably still working 20 hours a day, missing Emma's childhood, chasing something that would never make you truly happy. "Exactly." He hugged her. "You saved me, you know. Not with great drama or massive intervention, just with your example, your presence, your way of living with integrity." "We saved each other," Sarah corrected. "You gave me back my career, my confidence. You showed me I didn't have to do it all alone. Then I guess we're even." "I guess so." From the garden, they heard Emma and Lily's laughter, playing some elaborate game they had invented. The sound was pure, joyful, the perfect soundtrack of lives lived with love and attention. James looked around his house, seeing all the ways it had changed in the last year. Emma's drawings on the walls, Sarah's design sketches on the refrigerator, photos of the four of them together on various adventures. Evidence of life truly lived, not just observed from behind an office desk. "You know what's funny?" James said. "I used to think giving Emma the best life meant giving her material things, the biggest house, the most expensive toys, the most prestigious education. And now I know the best life I can give her is presence, unconditional love, an example of how to live with integrity and purpose, and an extended family that loves her for who she is, not for what she has." Sarah kissed his cheek softly. "You're doing well, James, really well. We're doing well. Together." In the garden, Emma shouted something about having found a hidden treasure, probably a shiny rock, and Lily responded with equal enthusiasm. James and Sarah smiled, sharing the moment without words, because in the end, that's what mattered, the moments. Not the grand gestures or expensive possessions, but the millions of small moments that made up a life. Moments of connection, of laughter, of love given freely without expectation of return. A red dress with white lace, sewn 8 months in advance, had been the catalyst, but the real magic wasn't in the fabric or stitches. It was in the love it represented. It was in the lessons it taught about what really mattered. It was in the lives it changed, simply by being a reminder that true success isn't measured in dollars or status, but in relationships, in integrity, in the love we give and receive. And as James Mitchell stood there with Sarah in his arms, listening to their daughters play in the garden, he knew with absolute certainty that finally, after 42 years, he had discovered what it truly meant to be rich. It had nothing to do with money. It had everything to do with this. With love. With family. With moments that mattered. With a life truly lived.